Sydney Swans have booked themselves into the 2022 Grand Final, claiming wins over Melbourne and a thrilling 1-point win in the preliminary final over Collingwood to see John Longmire into his third Grand Final as coach and hoping to land his second premiership with the Bloods. It's been quite a rise for Sydney. I don't think many had them in this position at the start of the year, albeit that many would have said the same about their opponents in Geelong. But the Swans have been absolutely fantastic to deny any of those doubters and piece together what are now an 8 undefeated game, 8 or 9 games undefeated. Cats have 15 as well. So one of these two clubs will see that those runs, one of their runs come to an end. And it's going to be a really exciting contest in 2022 season decider. The Swans have been a bit of a funny one, and I've always been one to admit that I certainly had them wrong in the back half of the year. Come, I think, September, when they booked themselves a spot against the Demons in that top 4 clash. I guess the clubs and the scalps that they'd pulled in that undefeated run heading into the postseason probably wasn't the best preparation for them, but certainly denied that and been absolutely fantastic to, knock off the reigning premiers week 1, but then stave off the Pies in week 3 in their preliminary final. In what was a game that I think they're going to get a lot of confidence out of. John Longmire said there was a lot to pull out of, and I think that's certainly what you need. Geelong go into this week's game with a 71-point win over Brisbane as their last performance, and much to be confident about in what they were able to do in dismantling a fellow premiership contender. But I think Sydney and some of those late lessons that they're going to learn before the grand final is going to be really key for them and for a young group that, a lot of their players haven't been in here before, haven't been in this position before. They had 2016 and you had your Heaney's, your Parkers, I think Cal Mills as well, but a lot of those other players, a lot of the young players they've recruited over the last few seasons have really added to and built to where they are now.
Yeah, I think you look at the Swans year, and I think you're right. No, I don't think anyone thought they were going to miss the 8 or anything, but look at some of the losses they had. They played Carlton on a Friday night and were beaten heavily for 3 quarters. They played Port Adelaide in Adelaide and were absolutely dismantled in the second half of that game. And then they were torn apart by Essendon in the last quarter of Luke Parker's, I think it was his 200th or 250th. The exact number slips my mind. But you think about those 3 games, there's no way that team could play in the grand final. They looked well beaten by 3 sides that missed the 8 ultimately. And the run they've gone on, I think that Essendon game might have been their last loss. I remember I was at that game. I remember John Longmire at the time. He was fuming when he came into the media room, and you could just sense that it wasn't going to go over well. And from that moment on, they have been impeccable. And obviously impeccable because they've won every game. But I can't think of a quarter, maybe other than the last quarter on Saturday afternoon, I can't think of a quarter, a moment where you've thought, geez, they don't look good here. They are firing on all cylinders. Buddy is back, just firing. September just brings out the best in Buddy. Even started taking some contested marks on the weekend, which we haven't seen in his locker for the best part of 15 years. He decided there was no way they were losing that. Tom Hickey, unbelievable when Sam Reid went down. Even Sam Reid playing some career best football, probably the best football he's played since he's on the cover of AFL Live 2 back in 2012. And then you look at Callum Mills, Mr. Fix-It. We spoke about, if you watch the Geelong preview on the Zero Hanger YouTube channel, we spoke about Mark Blitzar's ability to go anywhere and fix any problem. And Callum Mills does that with half the size. He can tag, he can win his own ball. Saw a couple of times in the dying stages of the prelim, he went to loose man defence and he was critical. But you go across every line. They've got players playing career best football. That's the thing that gets me really excited about what they're doing. Geelong are ticking along incredibly well, yes, and you can't knock 16 wins in a row and you can't knock a 71-point preliminary final win. But Sydney have so many players playing the best football we've seen. I can't remember seeing a side come into September this on form. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it's just so exciting that this group in a grand final this year and could easily be in the next 7 after this year as well. And it comes down to some of their recruitment. Like you said, yes, they have that academy advantage, but you put that aside, they've been absolutely fantastic in. And yes, they lose a lot of good players. They lose a lot of good players. Jordan Dawson and George Hewitt just the latest to depart. Literally the year before, and then you track even further back and you've got the like of Zach Jones, Tom Mitchell, Toby Nankervis, Darcy Cameron, all these guys have left.
And they're all guys playing regular senior footy. Yeah. Now, I think you, on your Twitter, you put out the list and it's much longer than the names we go into off the top of our heads, but almost all of them are playing best 22 football and playing very good football. So I think you're right. Yeah, the academy is what it is, but you also got to develop those players. You could look at Carlton's a great example of being able to draft players and not develop them. And you can get all the advantages you want through the draft, but if you can't develop footballers and you can't create a system that works for everyone that you have on your list, then you're not going to go that far. And then what they've actually do recruiting-wise, getting Paddy McCartan in, is just, even I think he got suspended in the VFL last year. I think we all thought, all right, that's probably it. That's probably time to wrap it up. But they stuck fat with him. They kept the faith while he was in their VFL program working under Jeremy Laidler, who was a good defender in his own right in his day, and then get him into the AFL system. And I can't think if he's missed. He might have missed one game through a concussion that may not have even been a concussion, and he's been unbelievable. His brother's now locked down in that defensive post with him, and really, look at them. They're both pretty undersized. They rarely get beat. I think, it just shows that Bloods culture, which our colleague Ed Carmi dived into really well in a piece on the zerohanger.com website. But you can go and look at that Bloods culture that just has stuck fat for almost forever now. I think they've, like Geelong, have missed about one final series in 20 years, and it's just awesome to be able to see two clubs at their absolute peak at the minute with cultures that are just bred off success meeting at the final day.
Yeah, I think you go back to 96, they've been in 22 of the last 27 final series, so pretty solid record for them. Like you said, Geelong are their opponents, and they've kind of done that over the last 15 years. But Sydney really have been up there for the better part of a quarter of a century, so absolutely, fantastic store for them. But premiership here is going to be really key. Obviously, they won one in 05. They got that one in 2012, but now 10 years later, and similar to Chris Scott, as we mentioned in our Geelong preview, John Longmire, this is, he didn't really, I don't think he really inherited an amazing list that he led into a premiership in 2012, but this one is certainly a bit different and one that isn't expecting to win a grand final. So he's done an absolutely fantastic job there. And you talk about some of the players they've lost, and you look at the players they've brought in. Tom Hickey, who, was always just seemed like a kind of an interesting move for them. The other one's Ryan Clark, who probably had his future up in the air earlier into this season. He was dominating the VFL.
Averaging a game in North Melbourne.
Yeah, averaging almost 40 touches a game in the VFL this year, 2 years after leaving North for a better opportunity and not really finding it up until the second half of this year. Been absolutely fantastic for them. And then their rookie draft pickups from what has probably been more of a decade-long recruitment plan, but your Dane Rampies, your Jake Lloyds, your Tom Papleys, even a Robbie Fox. Yeah. Plucking some of these guys out of the rookie draft has been absolutely fantastic for them and really built to their list. And then you look at their academy players. Yes, they do get them somewhat for free, or it doesn't cost them as much as it would any other club, but it's the players that they turn these guys into. Like it's not easy to turn an Errol Goulden, who was still picked 30 odd, into a player that Errol Goulden is. Braden Campbell still yet to see a bit more, but Nick Blakey, they've been able to transform someone who as well probably wasn't showing the signs of a top 10 pick and is now a really lethal halfback. And then Logan McDonald's got some years to go, but could be a real big key forward for them for the years to come after Lance Franklin either hangs up the boots or leaves. But and then you've got, your Isaac Heaney's, your Cal Mills, some of these other guys who are top picks and just have been, and they've gotten the best out of them already so far. So it's been absolutely fantastic. Their recruit, whether you're looking at whatever avenue you want to see these guys pick up. And the second round draft pick specialists as well. Chad Warner, Tom McCartan, James Rowbottom, in the last 4 years or so, all those guys are second round picks that any club could have had. So they did really well with their drafting on top of any academy pick that they do get to bring into the club. And it's been what's built their list to where they are now. Yeah,
absolutely. I think one thing we touched on, again, to float back to the Geelong preview we did earlier on, look at where they recruit a lot of their players from, and it's absolutely no knock, but they got Jeremy Cameron fresh out of a grand final. Patrick Dangerfield was pretty much in the best team in the competition, and they went and got them, and that's absolutely a credit to them for doing that. But what's Sydney been able to do with Tom Hickey, it's now at his fourth club, I believe, was on the scrap heap, really. It was just kind of we'll bring him in and see what we can do. With the absence of Sam Naismith over a number of years now, he's just excelled continuously and he's become one of the best ruckmen in the competition. Paddy McCartney, we spoke about, was delisted for St Kilda because he couldn't really get his concussions right. He was just seemed lost to the game and couldn't even stick it at VFL level for that year. But they've turned him into an excellent intercept defender. And then Ryan Clark, who at North Melbourne was very much a bit part player, wasn't best 22 every week, and now given they found a role for him, he probably isn't in Sydney's best 22 players, but they managed to find a role for him. You think back to the Collingwood game, not the preliminary final, but the one previous, where they gave him the job on Nick Dacos, and that just about solidified his spot in the side. I think they realised now we've got something here, and he's managed to lock himself a spot, and he'll play in a grand final now. It's unbelievable. I just got a lot of respect for the way they don't necessarily go to the top of the tree. They do their homework and they find the player that best suits what they need, bring him in. I think those three are just an incredible example of what they're able to do with not little resource, but with maybe players that weren't, as desired at their original clubs, or weren't, as we saw with Paddy McCartan. There wasn't a lot of clubs chasing Paddy when he was out of the system. So, what they've been able to do there, it's an absolute credit to the Bloods culture.
Looking at that list and the likely 22, 23 that they'll take into Saturday, who's the man that steps up for them? Who's the difference maker that decides, the difference between losing by a point and winning by a point for the Swans?
Yeah, it's a tricky one with the Swans. Because I said, I think everyone's playing career best footy, and I think the Swans have two kind of moulds of play. They've got their showtime. It could be Buddy and Tom Papley if they get up and running, and if Paps is running laps to the G, if he kicks the first goal of the game, be prepared, he might run the Jollymont station. They might not catch him. It might be Shane Warne 700 stuff, but if he gets up and going and Buddy gets up and going, then I think they could get out of control. If the game's a bit tighter and it's on, I think you look at someone like Chad Warner and James Rowbottom, those underrated mids, because Mills and Heaney and Parker, they'll do their usual, they'll go to work. But Warner and Rowbottom, what they've been able to do is that kind of second foil. They've been able to become really damaging midfielders. Rowbottom seems to be the go-to clearance guy. I think you could watch a bit of footage from the prelim, and Tom Hickey was just tapping it straight down below him. Rowbottom was right at his feet, one kick banging out, and they left space there. I think in a grand final, if they're able to get that domination, they can get that dominance where Hickey can just feed Rowbottom, they can get territory. That's a big step in a grand final, particularly early when the heat's on. So I'll be looking for a big one from James Rowbottom and Chad Warner. How about you?
Yeah, see, I think, the man is in the midfield, but it's Luke Parker. This is going to be an engine room it's going to get real steamy, real hot when the ball hits the deck. And with the likes of a Selwood, a Guthrie, a Dangerfield and Atkins, all with their head over the ball, it's going to be Luke Parker. I think the one that can really just get in there, grab it and get it out and get it to a Warner, a Rowbottom. He's going to be my tip for the Norm. In the case of Sydney win, I think he's the one that gets them over that line. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic effort for him to help lead this club to another premiership. But he's the one for me. I think just his contested ball winning ability.
His ability to hit the scoreboard too. I think we've seen his kick 4 goals a couple of times in his career. He doesn't have to go forward to do it either. He can genuinely hit the score from the midfield. So as a Norm tip, we know midfielders who score goals are priceless. So I think that's an absolutely terrific tip from you.
Yeah, no, I think Parker's the one for me. You've gone for that Rowbottom Warner type.
They might not be Norm. I think they sit under that underrated. I think if I had to pick a Norm for Sydney, I'd probably look at Callum Mills purely because I think he might be the one they just put on a danger. Someone that if danger goes mid-forward, they just go, you go with him. And if he can win that role, I think that goes a long way to winning Sydney the game. Therefore, I think he probably wins the Norm. But just watching that preliminary final, James Rowbottom, probably more so than Chad Warner, Rowbottom's the need they had for him to be that first tap was just unbelievable. So I think that'll go. Obviously, I doubt Geelong will let that happen again. I think they'll be a bit more alert to it, especially now if I've outed that. So sorry, Horse, if that was under wraps. But I just think his importance was vital on Saturday, and I think if they get that role going again, it could be incredibly important again. Yeah,
it's going to be a monumental day for the Swans. Win or lose, where they've gotten to this year has been fantastic effort. And like I said earlier, I think they're a great chance to be in the next 6 or 7 premierships anyway, just given where their list currently sits. That'll wrap us up for our Swans preview. As mentioned, you can check out our full preview of Geelong on zerohanger.com and on Zero Hanger YouTube, as well as our entire grand final preview.